The invitation had arrived in the mail just as I was buried in my final exams. At first, I considered ignoring it. High school was a distant memory, one I had purposefully left behind when I moved abroad for university. But as the weeks of studying dragged on, the thought of returning home for the reunion seemed less daunting. Maybe it was time to reconnect, to see how everyone had changed, or stayed the same. Finally, I booked my flight and made the arrangements. The idea of stepping back into my hometown brought a mix of anxiety and nostalgia. Would things feel the same? Would old friendships still hold? And most importantly, would I run into anyone from my past that I had left behind? As the plane touched down, I felt a surge of emotions. The familiar sights of Maplewood High School stood proudly, unchanged by the years. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of memories settle on my shoulders. The reunion was to be held in the school auditorium, a place where so many moments, both joyous and painful, had been etched into my mind. Walking through the entrance, I was greeted by a sea of familiar faces. Laughter and chatter filled the air, blending with the clinking of glasses and the soft hum of background music. It was comforting, yet overwhelming. I scanned the room, spotting friends I hadn't seen in years. Some greeted me warmly, others with cautious smiles, but everyone seemed genuinely happy to see each other. Then, amidst the crowd, I saw him. Michael, my high school sweetheart. His presence was impossible to ignore. Michael had always been the epitome of charm and success. Tall, with a confident smile and eyes that seemed to hold endless stories. He stood there with Emily, his wife, who was equally stunning but in a different, more understated way. They looked perfect together, a stark contrast to the uncertainties I felt bubbling inside me. I took a moment to observe them from across the room. Michael was animatedly talking to a group of old friends, his laughter genuine and his demeanor relaxed. Emily stood beside him, her hand gently resting on his arm, her eyes occasionally meeting mine with a polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. There was an unspoken tension in the air, a complexity that I couldn't quite decipher. As I mustered the courage to approach them, memories flooded my mind. Late-night study sessions, shared secrets under the bleachers, the first kiss that had left my heart racing, but those days felt like a lifetime ago. I reminded myself that people change, and so do circumstances. "Hey, it's been a while," I greeted, trying to keep my voice steady as I approached Michael and Emily. Michael turned to me, his smile widening. "It really has. You look amazing," he said, his eyes reflecting a warmth that I remembered so well. "Thank you," I replied, glancing at Emily. "You two make a lovely couple." Emily nodded politely. "Thank you. It's been wonderful catching up with everyone." We exchanged pleasantries, but beneath the surface, I could feel the old connection between Michael and me stirring. It was something I had long suppressed, buried beneath years of ambition and distance. As the evening progressed, I found myself stealing glances at Michael, noticing the way his eyes occasionally lingered on me, a flicker of something unspoken passing between us. Later that night, as the reunion continued, I found a quiet corner to collect my thoughts. The noise and laughter seemed distant now, leaving me alone with my memories. I couldn't shake the feeling that seeing Michael again was more than just a coincidence. There was an underlying current, a story waiting to unfold. As I sipped my drink, Hunter, my closest friend, joined me. He'd come along to support me, knowing how much I'd avoided this reunion. Hunter was always the practical one, the voice of reason when my emotions ran high. "So, how are you holding up?" he asked, concern etched on his face. I sighed, looking down at my glass. "It's a lot to process, Hunter. Seeing Michael again, it brings back so many memories. And now, after all these years, things feel so different." Hunter nodded, understanding without needing to ask further. People change, and so do relationships. Just take it one step at a time. Focus on why you came here. I appreciated his words, knowing he was right. I had come here not just for closure, but also to see if there was any unfinished business left in my heart. Michael had moved on, marrying Emily, but perhaps there was something more lingering beneath the surface. As the night wore on, the conversations flowed, stories were shared, and old bonds were rekindled. Yet, every time Michael and Emily passed by, my heart skipped a beat, and I could feel Hunter's supportive presence beside me, grounding me in the present. The reunion was a whirlwind of emotions, each moment layered with the past and the present intertwining. As I left the auditorium, the cool night air was refreshing, but my mind was still tangled in thoughts of Michael and what-ifs. The future was uncertain, and the past had a way of resurfacing when least expected. Driving back to my temporary home, I glanced in the rearview mirror, catching a glimpse of my reflection. The woman staring back was different, stronger, more determined, yet still carrying the echoes of her high school days. I realized that this reunion was more than just a nostalgic trip. It was a turning point, a catalyst for the changes that were about to unfold in my life. As I settled into bed that night, my thoughts drifted to the night's events. Michael's presence had stirred something within me, a mixture of old feelings and new complexities. I knew that my return home was just the beginning of a journey I hadn't anticipated, one that would challenge my ambitions and confront the shadows of my past. Little did I know, the reunion was merely the first chapter in a story that would redefine my future, entwining my path with Michael's in ways I could never have imagined. The morning sun streamed through the curtains of my temporary home, casting a warm glow on the room that felt both familiar and foreign after my return. I lay in bed for a moment longer, letting the memories of last night settle in. The reunion had been a whirlwind, stirring up emotions I thought I had neatly tucked away. Now, as I sat up and stretched, I realized just how much the past still lingered in my present. I decided to take a walk down memory lane, figuratively speaking, by revisiting my old high school journals. There was something comforting about flipping through the pages, seeing the evolution of my thoughts and dreams. As I read entries from my junior and senior years, I couldn't help but smile at the naivete and ambition that defined my younger self. I remembered the late-night study sessions, the adrenaline of upcoming exams, and the constant push to excel academically. My focus had always been on the future, on building a life that was distinctly my own, far away from the small-town dynamics of Maplewood. But amidst all the academic fervor, there was another recurring theme in my journals. Michael. We had been inseparable during those years, our friendship blossoming into a romance that felt destined. Michael was the kind of person who could light up a room with his presence, charismatic, driven, and effortlessly charming. He had dreams of his own, dreams that seemed to align perfectly with mine. Or so I had believed. Our relationship had been a beacon of stability and support. We encouraged each other through the pressures of high school, pushing one another to reach our full potential. But as graduation approached, our paths began to diverge. I had received a scholarship to a prestigious university abroad, a step that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Michael, on the other hand, had family expectations pulling him in a different direction. His parents, both successful professionals, envisioned a future for him that involved joining the family business, a path I couldn't fully understand or support. I recalled the countless conversations we had about our future, the late-night debates about career choices, and the silent understanding that our relationship was evolving. Despite the differences, we had promised to support each other, no matter where life took us. Yet, deep down, I had always wondered if our dreams were too different to sustain the bond we shared. Flipping back to my last entry before leaving town, I found myself writing about the uncertainty that had begun to seep into our relationship. Can love withstand the pull of ambition? I had penned, questioning whether our connection could bridge the growing gap between our individual aspirations. At the time, I was too focused on my studies to fully grasp the emotional distance that was forming. Closing the journal, I felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with regret. The reunion had reignited those old feelings, bringing to the surface questions I hadn't fully addressed. Had Michael truly moved on? Or was he still holding on to something that we had left unresolved? Deciding to walk the streets of Maplewood, I wanted to see firsthand how much had changed and how much had stayed the same. The town felt like a patchwork quilt of memories, each street, each storefront holding a story from my past. As I strolled down Maple Avenue, I passed by the old bookstore where Michael and I had spent countless afternoons. It was now a modern cafe, the facade updated but retaining some of its original charm. I paused for a moment, reminiscing about the times we had debated over books and shared our favorite authors. Turning the corner, I found myself outside our favorite hangout spot, the community park. The swings still creaked with the same rhythm, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. I sat on a familiar bench, closing my eyes and letting the sounds of children playing and birds chirping transport me back to simpler times. It was here that Michael had confessed his dreams beyond the family business, dreams that had both excited and worried me. As I sat there, lost in thought, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Emily. My heart skipped a beat as I read her words. "Can we talk? I feel like there are things you need to know." Asterisk, confusion and apprehension washed over me. Emily, Michael's wife, reaching out? What could she possibly want? Was she aware of something I wasn't? Before I could respond, I heard footsteps approaching. Opening my eyes, I saw Emily standing before me, a mixture of determination and vulnerability in her expression. She looked different from the composed figure I had seen at the reunion. There was an urgency in her demeanor that I hadn't expected. "Hi," she greeted softly, taking a seat beside me on the bench. "Thank you for agreeing to meet on such short notice." I nodded, unsure of where this conversation was headed. "Of course. What's on your mind?" Emily took a deep breath, her eyes searching mine for a moment before she began. "I've been doing some thinking since the reunion. Michael and I have been together for 5 years now, but lately, things haven't been as perfect as they seemed." I felt a knot form in my stomach. Was this about Michael and me? Had Emily sensed something? She continued, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "I saw the way you looked at him during the reunion. I could tell there's something between you two that wasn't fully addressed before you left town." My heart raced, but I kept my composure. "Emily, I don't know what you're talking about. Michael and I were just friends." Emily shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. "I don't think it was just friendship. I've noticed the subtle interactions between you two over the years. I want to believe that Michael is happy with me, but seeing you brought back memories and feelings I thought we had both moved past." I reached out, placing a hand gently on hers. "Emily, I never intended for any of this to happen. Michael and I have a history, but you and I both have moved on." She nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting a mix of understanding and lingering hurt. "I know, and I'm not here to create more drama. I just wanted to clear the air and make sure that Michael is where he truly wants to be." Before I could respond, the sound of approaching footsteps caught our attention. Turning our heads, we saw Michael walking toward us, his expression a blend of surprise and concern. Emily stood up, her posture tense as Michael approached. "Emily, what are you doing here?" Michael asked, his voice a mix of confusion and worry. Emily took a step back, her gaze shifting between us. "I thought we needed to talk," she replied softly before turning and walking away. Michael looked between Emily and me, searching for answers. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his eyes filled with concern. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Emily wanted to discuss some things, but she decided to leave. He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. We should figure this out together." As Michael turned to leave, I felt a surge of emotions: guilt, confusion, and an undeniable connection that still lingered between us. Watching him walk away, I couldn't help but wonder how deeply our past was intertwined with the present and what this meant for the future. Later that day, I sat down with Hunter to discuss the morning's events. He listened intently, his brow furrowed in thought. "It sounds like Emily has some unresolved feelings too," he observed. "Maybe there's more to this than just old friends catching up." I nodded, feeling the weight of our shared history pressing down on me. I just don't want to hurt anyone. Michael is married, and now it feels like there are even more complications. Hunter placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You've always been one to handle tough situations with grace. Just remember to stay true to yourself and communicate openly with everyone involved." His words provided some comfort, but the uncertainty lingered. As night fell, I found myself reflecting on my high school years, the friendships and romances that had shaped me, and the choices that had led me to this point. The reunion had been a catalyst, bringing buried emotions to the surface and forcing me to confront the shadows of the past. Lying in bed, I thought about Michael and Emily. They seemed like the perfect couple, but the morning's encounter suggested otherwise. I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were more connected than I had ever realized, and that the decisions I made in the days to come would have far-reaching consequences. Determined to gain clarity, I decided to delve deeper into my feelings and the dynamics between the three of us. The path ahead was unclear, fraught with emotional complexities and unspoken truths. But one thing was certain: the reunion had set things in motion, and the shadows of the past were no longer content to remain hidden. As I drifted into sleep, my mind replayed the events of the day, each thought intertwining with memories and possibilities. The journey I had embarked upon years ago was resurfacing, demanding attention and resolution. And as the night deepened, I knew that facing these shadows would be essential for the future I had so diligently worked towards. Little did I realize, the decisions I was about to make would not only impact my own life, but also the lives of those I once held dear, weaving a complex tapestry of love, ambition, and unforeseen consequences. The weeks following the reunion were a blur of emotions and unanswered questions. Every glance at Michael seemed to pull me deeper into a whirlwind I wasn't sure I could navigate. His presence was a constant reminder of the past I had tried so hard to leave behind. Meanwhile, Emily's unexpected message lingered in my mind, adding layers of complexity to an already tangled situation. One evening, as I sat in my room reviewing notes for an upcoming exam, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over me. I set my books aside and leaned back, trying to steady myself. My heart raced as I grabbed my phone and called Hunter, my closest friend since childhood. He had always been my anchor, the one person I could rely on when everything else seemed to fall apart. "Hunter, I need to talk," I said, my voice shaky. He arrived within the hour, his presence as comforting as ever. We settled on the couch, and I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "I think I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken for a moment. Hunter's eyes widened in surprise before he reached out to squeeze my hand gently. "Are you sure?" I nodded, tears welling up in my eyes. "I took a home test this morning. It was positive." He pulled me into a reassuring hug, holding me tightly. "We'll figure this out together. You're not alone." I felt a mixture of relief and fear. The reality of being pregnant was both exhilarating and terrifying. Michael was married, and yet here I was, carrying his child. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. How had things spiraled so quickly? Was this a result of lingering feelings from our past, or was it something more? As I sat there, Hunter's unwavering support provided a semblance of stability. "What do you want to do?" he asked softly. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. My dreams of studying abroad, building a career in international law, seemed to clash with the sudden responsibility of motherhood. Yet, the idea of bringing a child into this complicated situation filled me with determination. "I want to keep the baby," I said firmly. "It's not just about me anymore." Hunter nodded, understanding the resolve in my voice. "All right, we'll make sure everything works out, but you need to tell Michael." The words felt like a lead weight in my throat. Telling Michael was inevitable, yet the fear of his reaction gnawed at me. Would he be supportive, or would this unravel the fragile peace that had settled between us since the reunion? That night, as I lay in bed, my mind raced with possibilities and fears. I had always been the one to plan every step of my life meticulously, ensuring that my ambitions were never compromised. Now, faced with an unexpected turn, I had to balance my dreams with the reality of impending motherhood. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of determination. The time had come to confront the situation head-on. I reached out to Michael, asking him to meet me at our old favorite cafe, the one where we had spent countless afternoons discussing our futures. When I arrived, Michael was already there, sitting at a corner table with a cup of coffee in front of him. His eyes met mine, and I could see a flicker of concern. Taking a deep breath, I sat down across from him. "Michael, we need to talk," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. He leaned forward, his expression serious. "What's going on? You seem different." I took another deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I'm pregnant." The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with implication. Michael's eyes widened in surprise before he quickly composed himself. "Pregnant? But how?" I looked down, struggling to find the right words. "It happened a few weeks ago. I wasn't planning for this, but I've decided to keep the baby." Michael sat back, his mind evidently processing the information. The silence between us was thick, filled with unspoken emotions and questions. Finally, he spoke, his voice softer. "I had no idea. Are you okay? How are you feeling?" I nodded, appreciating his concern. "I'm managing. It's going to be a lot, but I'm ready for it." He reached out, his hand covering mine in a gesture of support. "We need to figure out how to handle this. I want to help in any way I can." Relief washed over me at his words, but there was still an undercurrent of uncertainty. Michael was married to Emily, and our past was complicated enough without the addition of a child. How would Emily react? How would this affect all of us? As we sat there, trying to navigate the unexpected news, I couldn't help but think about the future. My dreams of studying abroad seemed both more distant and more important than ever. Balancing ambition with motherhood was a challenge I hadn't anticipated, but one I was determined to face head-on. Later that day, I decided to confide in Emily. If Michael was going to be part of this, Emily deserved to hear it from me directly. We arranged to meet at a quiet park, a neutral ground where I hoped to convey my intentions without causing undue stress. When Emily arrived, her demeanor was a mix of curiosity and apprehension. We sat on a bench beneath a large oak tree, the sounds of the park providing a backdrop to our tense conversation. "Emily, thank you for agreeing to meet," I began, my voice sincere. "I wanted to talk to you about something important." She nodded, her expression open yet guarded. "Of course. What is it?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I'm pregnant, and Michael is the father. I know this is unexpected, and I want to assure you that I'm committed to handling this responsibly." Emily listened intently, her eyes searching mine for any sign of deceit or hidden motives. After a moment of silence, she spoke, her voice calm, but tinged with emotion. "Thank you for telling me. This is a lot to take in." I reached out, placing a hand gently on hers. "I understand. I don't want to cause any pain or disruption. Michael and I have a history, but I respect the life you've built together." She took a deep breath, her grip on my hand tightening slightly. "We've been through a lot, Michael and I. This changes things, but we need to handle it maturely, for your sake and the baby's." I nodded, appreciating her measured response. "Absolutely. I want to work together to ensure that everyone's needs are met. I'm here to communicate openly and honestly." As we continued to talk, the initial tension began to ease, replaced by a mutual understanding of the situation's gravity. Emily's willingness to approach the conversation with grace gave me hope that we could navigate this unexpected turn without irreparable damage. Returning home that evening, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. The day had been a whirlwind of revelations and difficult conversations, but there was a sense of clarity that hadn't been there before. Michael's support and Emily's understanding were small rays of hope in an otherwise uncertain landscape. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the day's events. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but I felt a newfound strength rising within me. Balancing my academic ambitions with impending motherhood would require resilience and determination, but I was ready to embrace the unforeseen circumstances that life had presented. The following morning, I decided to focus on my studies with renewed vigor. My goal of studying abroad was still within reach, and I knew that achieving it would require meticulous planning and unwavering commitment. The pregnancy added a layer of complexity, but it also fueled my determination to create a stable and promising future for my child. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself adapting to the changes. Balancing coursework with doctor's appointments became a routine, and I leaned on Hunter more than ever for support. His unwavering presence was a constant source of comfort, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this journey. Michael and I continued to communicate regularly, discussing everything from my academic plans to the preparations for the baby's arrival. Our conversations, once filled with unresolved tension, now carried a sense of mutual respect and understanding. It was clear that we were both committed to navigating this unexpected chapter with maturity and care. Emily, too, became more involved, offering her support and guidance. Despite the initial shock, she approached the situation with a grace that surprised me. We began to build a fragile alliance, united by our shared concern for Michael and the unborn child. It wasn't easy, but step by step, we forged a path forward that prioritized the well-being of everyone involved. One afternoon, as I sat in the campus library poring over notes, Michael stopped by my table. He looked tired but determined, a reflection of the long hours he'd been putting in to balance his own career with supporting me. "How are you holding up?" he asked, pulling up a chair to sit beside me. I smiled, appreciating his concern. "It's been challenging, but I'm managing. How about you?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It's not easy balancing everything, but seeing you this determined gives me hope. I want to be there for you and the baby in any way I can." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the unspoken bond between us growing stronger with each passing day. Despite the complexities of our situation, there was a sense of unity that I hadn't felt before. It was as if the unforeseen circumstances had brought us closer, forging a new kind of relationship grounded in responsibility and mutual respect. That evening, as I reviewed my study abroad application, I felt a surge of determination. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it. Balancing motherhood with my academic ambitions would require resilience, but I was committed to creating a future that honored both my dreams and the life I was about to bring into the world. As the weeks continued, the initial shock of the pregnancy faded, replaced by a sense of purpose and determination. I focused on my studies with renewed vigor, knowing that each step I took brought me closer to both my academic goals and the impending arrival of my child. Hunter remained a steadfast presence, his support unwavering. We'd spent countless hours discussing plans, studying together, and preparing for the future. His practical advice and comforting presence were invaluable, reminding me that I wasn't alone in this journey. One crisp autumn afternoon, as the leaves painted the campus in hues of orange and gold, I received an acceptance letter from a prestigious university abroad. The news filled me with a mix of joy and anxiety. My dream was within reach, but the path to achieving it had become more complex than ever. I shared the news with Michael, who looked genuinely proud. "You did it! I always knew you could." His words filled me with gratitude, but I couldn't help but worry about the challenges that lay ahead. Studying abroad while preparing for motherhood would require careful planning and unwavering dedication. Yet, I felt a sense of resolve settling over me. This was my path, and I was determined to walk it with grace and strength. As I prepared to embark on this new chapter, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows of the past were still lurking, waiting to challenge the newfound clarity I had achieved. The journey ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it, armed with determination, support, and the hope of building a future that honored both my ambitions and the life I was carrying. Little did I know, the unforeseen circumstances that had thrust themselves into my life were only the beginning of a series of events that would test my resilience, redefine my relationships, and ultimately shape the course of my future in ways I could never have imagined. The days following my decision to keep the baby were a whirlwind of emotions and logistical challenges. Balancing my academic responsibilities with the impending arrival of a child felt like walking a tightrope, each step requiring careful consideration and unwavering focus. Yet, amidst the chaos, one conversation stood out as a pivotal moment that would shape the trajectory of the relationships entwined in this unexpected situation. It was a chilly Saturday afternoon when I decided to visit Michael at his office. The thought of seeing him in a professional setting, away from the casual environment of our old favorite cafe, felt strangely appropriate. I needed clarity, both for myself and for the sake of everyone involved. Hunter had already offered his support, but this was a conversation I had to face alone. As I approached Michael's office building, my heart pounded in my chest. The towering glass structure reflected the overcast sky, casting a somber tone over the proceedings. Taking a deep breath, I walked up to the receptionist's desk. "Can I help you?" she asked politely. "Yes, I'm here to see Michael Thompson," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced at the schedule and nodded. "He's expecting you. Please take a seat, and he'll be with you shortly." I thanked her and found a chair in the waiting area, my mind racing with what I was about to say. Minutes felt like hours as I sat there, rehearsing the conversation in my head. Finally, Michael emerged, his expression a mix of surprise and concern as he saw me standing there. "Hey," he greeted, offering a tentative smile. "Come on in." I followed him into his office, the door closing softly behind us. The room was tastefully decorated, with shelves lined with books and framed certificates adorning the walls, testaments to Michael's achievements and the path his life had taken since high school. We sat down across from each other, a palpable tension filling the space between us. I took another deep breath, gathering my courage. "Michael, thank you for meeting me." He nodded, his eyes reflecting a depth of emotion I couldn't quite decipher. "Of course. I want to make sure we handle this properly." I reached out, placing my hand over his. "I've decided to keep the baby. I know this complicates things, but I believe it's the right decision for me and the child." His grip on my hand tightened slightly, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of the situation. "I'm sorry you're going through this," he said softly. "I want to support you in any way I can." I felt a surge of relief at his words, but there was an undercurrent of something else. Something unresolved between us. "I appreciate that, Michael. I know this isn't easy for any of us." He leaned back, his gaze distant. "It's more complicated than I initially thought. I'm married to Emily and I love her, but seeing you again, hearing about the pregnancy, it brings back a lot of memories and feelings I thought I had moved past." I nodded, understanding the conflict he was grappling with. "I never intended to disrupt your life. I just wanted to be honest and responsible." Michael sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I need time to process this. I want to be there for you and the baby, but I also don't want to hurt Emily or jeopardize my marriage." The weight of his words settled heavily between us. I had anticipated his struggle, but seeing it laid bare was still difficult to swallow. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I just hope we can communicate openly and find a way to navigate this together." He gave a small, appreciative smile. "We will. I want to ensure that this child has a stable and loving environment, and that includes both of us doing our part." As I left his office, a mix of emotions swirled within me. Michael's commitment to supporting me and our child was reassuring, yet the complexity of our intertwined lives loomed large. The conversation had provided some clarity, but it also underscored the delicate balance we needed to maintain moving forward. Later that evening, I met with Hunter for our usual study session. His presence was a comforting constant amidst the turbulence of recent events. As we settled into our seats, I couldn't help but share the details of my conversation with Michael. "He's supportive, but he's conflicted," I explained, watching Hunter's expression shift to one of concern. "He loves Emily, but he also wants to be there for me and the baby." Hunter nodded thoughtfully. "It makes sense. Michael has always been someone who values his commitments. This situation is bound to be challenging, but it sounds like he's handling it responsibly." I sighed, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on me. "I just hope we can find a way to make this work without causing too much pain for everyone involved." He reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're strong, and you're not alone in this. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time." True to his words, the following days were a blend of study sessions, doctor's appointments, and difficult conversations. Michael's involvement remained steady, though we both knew that navigating the path ahead would require patience and understanding. Despite his best efforts, the strain began to show, subtly affecting his interactions with Emily. Emily, meanwhile, couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Her behavior grew more distant, and her eyes held a lingering suspicion that I couldn't quite place. It wasn't long before she began her own quiet investigation into the changes she perceived in Michael's demeanor. One evening, as I was leaving the library, I ran into Emily unexpectedly. She stood at the entrance, her expression guarded yet curious. "Hi, Emily," I greeted, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. She nodded, a polite smile on her lips. "Hi, do you have a moment to talk?" I hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Sure, what's on your mind?" She glanced around to ensure we weren't being overheard, then leaned in slightly. "I've noticed that things between you and Michael have changed since the reunion. I just want to make sure everything is okay." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Emily, I understand why you might be concerned. Michael and I have a history, and recent events have brought some of those old feelings back. But I want to assure you that my intention is not to cause any trouble." Her eyes searched mine, seeking sincerity. "I appreciate your honesty. Michael has been acting a bit distant lately, and I can't help but wonder if it's related to your conversation." I nodded, feeling the tension in the air. "It is related, in a way. I'm pregnant, and Michael has been very supportive. It's a complicated situation, and we're trying to navigate it responsibly." Emily took a step back, processing the information. "I see. Thank you for telling me. This isn't easy for any of us, but I want to approach it maturely, for the sake of everyone involved." I felt a sense of relief at her measured response. "I agree. We all deserve to handle this with care and respect." She offered a small, genuine smile. "Thank you. Let's work together to ensure that this situation is managed in the best possible way." As she walked away, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Despite the complexities and emotional turmoil, there was a glimmer of understanding and cooperation that suggested we could navigate this uncharted territory with grace. That night, I reflected on the day's events. Emily's willingness to approach the situation with maturity was a positive sign, but I knew that challenges still lay ahead. Balancing my academic ambitions with the responsibilities of impending motherhood while maintaining healthy relationships with both Michael and Emily would require resilience and unwavering determination. As I settled into bed, Hunter's words echoed in my mind. "You're strong, and you're not alone in this." His support was invaluable, a steady presence that reminded me of the strength I possessed within. The path ahead was uncertain, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Confronting reality meant embracing the complexities of the present while staying focused on my dreams and the future I envisioned for my child. Little did I know, the choices I made in the days to come would not only shape my own destiny, but also redefine the relationships that had been so intricately woven into the fabric of my life. The weeks following my conversations with Michael and Emily were a delicate dance of emotions and revelations. Each day seemed to blend into the next, marked by study sessions, doctor's appointments, and the constant undercurrent of our intertwined lives. While Michael's support remained steady, the shadow of his marriage to Emily loomed large, adding layers of complexity to an already intricate situation. One crisp morning, as autumn leaves painted the campus in hues of amber and gold, I sat in the library, surrounded by stacks of books and notes. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, balancing my academic ambitions with impending motherhood, navigating the delicate relationships with Michael and Emily, and the ever-present worry of how my choices would impact everyone involved. Hunter sat across from me, his presence a comforting anchor amidst the chaos. "Have you heard anything new from Michael?" Hunter asked, breaking the silence. I shook my head, pushing a stray lock of hair behind my ear. "No, he's been busy with work and preparing for a presentation next week. But he's been making time for me and the baby, which I really appreciate." Hunter nodded thoughtfully. "That's good to hear. But Michael might be feeling the pressure from Emily. It's not easy juggling all these emotions." I sighed, rubbing my temples. I just want everything to work out without causing too much pain for anyone. But it feels like the more I try to balance things, the more complicated it becomes. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Emily. "Can we meet? There are things we need to discuss." My heart skipped a beat. Emily reaching out was unexpected, especially after our previous conversations had been relatively calm. I glanced at Hunter, who gave me a reassuring smile. "I think I need to talk to her. It might help clear the air." We agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop downtown, a neutral ground away from the tension of our respective environments. As I arrived, I spotted Emily already seated at a corner table, her posture relaxed, yet her eyes vigilant. She looked different from the composed figure I had seen at the reunion. There was a hint of vulnerability in her demeanor. "Hi, Emily," I greeted, taking a seat across from her. She nodded, her expression serious. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I wanted to talk about how things have been since the reunion and the news of your pregnancy." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "I appreciate you reaching out. It's important that we handle this responsibly." Emily leaned forward, her eyes meeting mine with an earnestness that caught me off guard. "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize that this situation affects all of us deeply. Michael and I have always valued honesty and integrity, and I want to ensure that we approach this in the best way possible." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief that she was approaching the conversation with maturity. "I agree. I never intended to cause any disruption or pain. Michael has been incredibly supportive, and I'm committed to handling this responsibly." She paused, her gaze flickering to her hands before returning to mine. "I want to understand how you and Michael navigated this situation. It's not just about the pregnancy, it's about the emotions and histories that come with it." I took another deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Michael and I have a long history. We were inseparable during high school, and while our paths diverged after graduation, there was always a connection that never fully disappeared. The reunion brought those feelings back, and I believe that's how things progressed." Emily listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "I've always admired Michael's dedication and how he balances his career with personal relationships. But I can't ignore that this situation challenges the foundation we've built together." I reached out, placing a hand gently on hers. "I understand the gravity of this situation. My intention is not to come between you and Michael, but rather to find a way for all of us to move forward with respect and understanding." She squeezed my hand slightly, a gesture of solidarity. "I appreciate that. Michael and I have always prioritized open communication, and I think that's what we need now more than ever. We need to establish boundaries and expectations to ensure that this does not disrupt the lives we've worked so hard to build." As we continued to talk, the initial tension began to ease, replaced by a mutual understanding of the complexities involved. Emily's willingness to engage in an honest and respectful dialogue was a positive sign, suggesting that there was hope for navigating this challenging situation without irreparable damage. Leaving the meeting, I felt a sense of relief mingled with apprehension. Emily's approach was commendable, but the path ahead was still fraught with uncertainties. Balancing my academic ambitions, the responsibilities of impending motherhood, and maintaining healthy relationships with both Michael and Emily would require resilience and unwavering determination. That evening, I shared the details of the meeting with Hunter. He listened attentively, his expression a mix of concern and support. "It sounds like Emily is handling this with a lot of maturity. That's a good sign, but you should also take care of yourself. Don't let the stress overwhelm you." I nodded, appreciating his unwavering support. "I know, and I'm grateful to have you by my side. It's just hard not to worry about how everything will unfold." Hunter reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You're strong, and you've handled everything so far with grace. Just keep focusing on what's important, your studies, your health, and the baby. We'll navigate this together." His words provided some comfort, but the lingering uncertainty remained. As the days turned into weeks, the balance between my academic pursuits and personal life continued to be a challenging tightrope walk. Michael's involvement remained steady, though the strain of his divided attention was evident in his interactions with Emily. One afternoon, as I was leaving the library, I overheard a conversation that made my heart sink. Emily was speaking with one of our old teachers, Mrs. Lawson, who had always been supportive during my high school years. "She deserves to know the truth," Emily was saying, her voice firm yet compassionate. "We need to ensure that Michael can be fully present for his responsibilities without any hidden agendas." Mrs. Lawson nodded thoughtfully. "It's a difficult situation, but I believe transparency is key. Michael has always been honorable, and I trust that he will handle this with the utmost integrity." I couldn't help but feel a pang of anxiety listening to their conversation. Was there something more that I was unaware of? The web of relationships and emotions was becoming increasingly intricate, and I feared that any misstep could lead to unforeseen consequences. Later that night, as I sat in my room reviewing notes for an upcoming exam, Michael knocked softly on my door. I looked up to see him standing there, his expression serious, yet gentle. "Can we talk?" he asked, stepping inside. I nodded, gesturing for him to sit. "Of course. What's on your mind?" He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "I've been thinking a lot about our situation and how to move forward in a way that's respectful to everyone involved. I want to ensure that both Emily and you feel supported and heard." I appreciated his thoughtful approach. "I agree. It's important that we communicate openly and set clear boundaries to prevent any misunderstandings." He leaned forward, his eyes meeting mine with sincerity. "I also want to make sure that Emily and I can maintain a healthy relationship despite the challenges we're facing. She's been incredibly understanding, and I don't want her to feel threatened or insecure." I reached out, placing a hand on his. "You both deserve happiness and stability. I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to ensure that we can all move forward without causing unnecessary pain." He gave a small, appreciative smile. "Thank you. It means a lot to know that you're approaching this with such grace and maturity. I want to support you and our child, but I also need to honor my commitment to Emily." The sincerity in his voice was reassuring, yet the complexity of our situation was still palpable. "I understand. We'll take this one step at a time, ensuring that everyone's needs are met while respecting each other's boundaries." As he left, I felt a sense of clarity settling over me. The path ahead was still uncertain, but the commitment to open communication and mutual respect provided a foundation upon which we could build. Balancing my academic ambitions with the responsibilities of impending motherhood and maintaining healthy relationships with both Michael and Emily would require resilience and unwavering determination. But I was ready to embrace the challenge. The following days were a testament to the strength of our newfound understanding. Michael and I continued to communicate regularly, discussing everything from my academic plans to the preparations for the baby's arrival. Our conversations, once filled with unresolved tension, now carried a sense of mutual respect and collaboration. Emily, too, remained involved, offering her support and guidance. Despite the initial shock, she approached the situation with a grace that surprised me. We began to build a fragile alliance, united by our shared concern for Michael and the unborn child. It wasn't easy, but step by step, we forged a path forward that prioritized the well-being of everyone involved. And one afternoon, as I was leaving a meeting with my academic advisor, I received a call from Emily. Her voice was calm, yet there was an underlying urgency that piqued my curiosity. "Can we meet? There's something important I need to discuss with you," she said. I agreed, sensing that there was more to the situation than mere courtesy. We arranged to meet at the same coffee shop where we had first spoken, a neutral ground where our conversations had already laid the groundwork for understanding. When I arrived, Emily was already there, her posture relaxed yet attentive. She looked more composed than ever, her eyes reflecting a blend of determination and vulnerability. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady. "There's something I need to share with you, something that I think is important for all of us to know." I felt a knot form in my stomach, wondering what new revelations she was about to disclose. "What is it, Emily?" She took a deep breath, her gaze unwavering. "I've been doing some research into Michael's professional background, not out of suspicion, but out of a desire to understand the pressures he's facing. It turns out that his role at the firm has become increasingly demanding, with expectations that are higher than ever before." I listened intently, my mind racing to connect the dots. I had no idea. Michael has always been so dedicated to his work. Emily nodded. "Yes, and it's taking a toll on him. I think the stress is contributing to the strain in our relationship. He's been trying to balance everything, and I worry that it's affecting his ability to fully support you and the baby." A surge of empathy washed over me. Michael was not just juggling his marriage and impending fatherhood, but also the pressures of a demanding career. I didn't realize how much he was struggling. "Is there anything I can do to help?" She smiled softly, a hint of relief in her eyes. Just being here for him, supporting him in any way you can. I know it's not easy, but our united support could make a significant difference. We need to ensure that Michael doesn't feel overwhelmed by trying to manage everything on his own. I nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I agree. We're all in this together, and supporting each other is crucial. Emily reached out, placing her hand over mine. Thank you for understanding. I know this isn't a simple situation, but I believe that with open communication and mutual support, we can navigate it successfully. As we continued our conversation, the initial tension gave way to a collaborative spirit. It was clear that the challenges we faced required a unified approach, one that prioritized empathy, understanding, and shared responsibility. The revelation about Michael's professional pressures added another layer to our already complex dynamics, but it also highlighted the importance of solidarity in overcoming obstacles. Leaving the meeting, I felt a sense of hope mingled with determination. The path ahead was still uncertain, but the willingness of both Michael and Emily to engage in honest and supportive dialogue provided a foundation upon which we could build a stable and nurturing environment for the child I was carrying. That evening, as I sat in my room reviewing notes, I reflected on the day's events. The unveiling of Michael's professional struggles underscored the multifaceted nature of our situation. It wasn't just about personal relationships and emotional ties. It was also about balancing career ambitions, personal responsibilities, and the unforeseen circumstances that life had thrust upon us. I realized that navigating this intricate web of relationships would require more than just open communication. It would demand resilience, adaptability, and unwavering support from everyone involved. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but the collective commitment to handling things maturely and respectfully provided a beacon of hope. As I drifted into sleep that night, my mind was filled with thoughts of the future. The shadows of the past were gradually giving way to a new chapter, one defined by shared responsibilities and the promise of new beginnings. The road ahead was uncertain, but with the support of those around me, I felt ready to face whatever lay ahead, determined to create a harmonious balance between my ambitions and the life I was about to bring into the world. Little did I know, the unraveling of secrets and the strengthening of our alliances were just the beginning of a series of events that would test our resilience, redefine our relationships, and ultimately shape the course of our lives in ways we could never have anticipated. The final weeks of the semester had arrived, and the campus buzzed with the anticipation of exams and the promise of spring. For me, the culmination of months of balancing academic pressures, personal challenges, and the complexities of intertwined relationships was drawing near. The journey had been tumultuous, filled with unexpected twists and emotional highs and lows, but as I stood on the precipice of this new chapter, a sense of clarity and determination settled within me. My study abroad application had been accepted to one of the most prestigious universities in Europe. The acceptance letter felt like a validation of all the hard work and sacrifices I had made. Yet, as I held the letter in my hands, I was acutely aware of the delicate balance I needed to maintain between my academic ambitions and impending motherhood. The support from Hunter, Michael, and even Emily had been instrumental in navigating this intricate path. Michael had taken significant steps to manage his professional responsibilities more effectively. After our heartfelt conversations and recognizing the immense pressure he was under, he had negotiated a more flexible schedule with his supervisors. This allowed him to spend more quality time with Emily, me, and eventually, with his child. His dedication to being present for both his family and me demonstrated the depth of his character and the sincerity of his intentions. One evening, as we sat together in the library, Michael looked at me with a mixture of pride and affection. "I've been thinking a lot about how we can make this work," he said softly. "I want to be there for you and the baby without compromising my commitments. It won't be easy, but I'm willing to put in the effort." I reached out, taking his hand in mine. "I appreciate that, Michael. We're in this together, and with your support, I know we can create a stable environment for our child." Emily had shown remarkable grace and understanding throughout this ordeal. Our initial meetings, though tense, had evolved into a cooperative relationship founded on mutual respect and shared responsibilities. She had actively participated in discussions about boundaries and expectations, ensuring that our interactions remained respectful and focused on the well-being of everyone involved. One afternoon, Emily and I met again to finalize plans for Michael's increased presence at home. "I think it's important that we establish a routine that works for all of us," she suggested. "Michael needs to feel supported, and so do you." I nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. Open communication is key. Let's make sure we're all on the same page and that no one feels neglected or overwhelmed." Hunter remained my steadfast supporter, his practical advice and unwavering presence a constant source of comfort. As the due date approached, his role became even more crucial, helping me manage both academic responsibilities and personal care. His friendship had deepened, evolving into a bond that was both supportive and profound. One evening, after a particularly long day of studying and preparing for the baby's arrival, Hunter joined me for a quiet dinner. "You've handled everything with incredible strength," he remarked, his eyes filled with admiration. "I'm proud of you." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you. Your support means the world to me." As the semester drew to a close, the final exams loomed large. Despite the challenges, I managed to maintain my focus, driven by the dual motivations of achieving my academic goals and ensuring a bright future for my child. Michael and Emily's support had created a nurturing environment that allowed me to excel without feeling isolated or overwhelmed. On the day of the last exam, I walked into the classroom with a sense of accomplishment. The months of hard work and perseverance had paid off. As I sat down, I glanced at Michael, who gave me an encouraging smile. His presence was a reassuring reminder of the support system I had built around me. Shortly after the exams concluded, I decided it was time to share some joyous news with everyone. We organized a small gathering at our favorite cafe, inviting Michael, Emily, Hunter, and a few close friends. The atmosphere was warm and celebratory, the perfect setting for sharing our happiness. As we sat around a table filled with laughter and conversation, I stood up, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "I have something important to share," I began, taking a deep breath. "I've decided to go abroad to pursue my studies, and we're also expecting a baby." The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. Michael stood up first, enveloping me in a heartfelt hug. "This is incredible news. I'm so proud of you." Emily smiled warmly, her earlier reservations replaced by genuine happiness. "Congratulations. We're all here to support you every step of the way." Hunter raised his glass, his eyes twinkling with pride. "To new beginnings and the beautiful journey ahead." With the acceptance letter in hand and the support of those around me, I felt ready to embark on this new chapter. The challenges that once seemed insurmountable were now manageable, thanks to the resilience I had built and the unwavering support from my friends and loved ones. In the months that followed, we worked together to create a balanced and nurturing environment. Michael's involvement deepened, and his relationship with Emily remained strong, built on mutual respect and understanding. Emily's role evolved into one of a supportive ally, ensuring that our collective efforts were focused on creating a harmonious future for all of us. As I prepared to leave for my studies abroad, the weight of the past had been replaced by the promise of new beginnings. The journey had been arduous, but it had also been transformative, teaching me the value of resilience, open communication, and the strength that comes from a supportive community. On the day of my departure, we gathered once more at the cafe, bidding farewell with tears of joy and promises to stay connected. Michael held my hand, his eyes reflecting a shared sense of hope. "This isn't goodbye," he said softly. "It's just the beginning of a new chapter for all of us." I smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." As I boarded the plane, the skyline of my hometown faded into the distance, but the bonds we had forged remained strong. The shadows of the past had been navigated with grace, leading us all toward a future filled with love, understanding, and the promise of new beginnings. A year had passed since that pivotal moment, and life had settled into a harmonious rhythm. I had successfully settled into my studies abroad, excelling academically while preparing for the arrival of my child. The support from Michael, Emily, and Hunter had remained unwavering, bridging the physical distance with constant communication and heartfelt visits. Michael and Emily had strengthened their marriage, navigating the challenges of their professional lives with a newfound appreciation for the importance of balance and mutual support. Their relationship had become a testament to resilience and the power of understanding, proving that even in the face of unforeseen circumstances, love and respect could prevail. As I looked forward to the future, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment and gratitude. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but it had also been a journey of growth, love, and unwavering support. Together, we had faced the shadows of the past and emerged stronger, ready to embrace the bright horizons that lay ahead.